Hey everybody, KT from 90s Muscle here again. Update. We've got the top of this motor all back together again. We had changed the valve cover gaskets. We had to pop the upper intake off, but we have put everything back in order here. Everything is cleaned up and tidy. We did wash 35 years of grime and grease off the spark plug wires. They are, as I showed you earlier, that one's upside down, but you can see the 1988 right there. Let's see on this side, maybe easier to see. Where's an 88 over here? Come on now. Come on now. That'll make a fool out of me. I know. There is one over here, facing the right way. Whoa, is that it right there? There you go. 1988. You see it right in there? Yeah, so it's original plug wires. Everything on this car is original. The closer I've looked at it, this is the original upper radiator hose, the original lower radiator hose down there. The belt was original. The cap and rotor was original. Rotor is original. It does, in fact, have the original radiator and water pump on the car. Spend a little bit more time under the car. What I had thought was a lower radiator hose leak appears to be a water pump leak, so we're probably going to have to entertain that. There's also a lot of scale, I think I mentioned before, inside the radiator. I don't know if you could see in there, but I think that the cooling system needs a refresh, and that's one thing about doing what we're doing here. When you find a Survivor of this caliber, you don't necessarily want to start taking everything off the car and throwing it away, but when it comes to service parts, especially you know, radiator hoses and things like that, it's kind of a hard bargain. You've got to either leave them on and go for it and hope that they hold as they have been holding, or you go ahead and you do a ground clean, so to speak. You do a full starting point, a rehab, and use the right parts. Obviously all Motorcraft stuff, but go ahead and take it from scratch. So in this car, for example, we would do the water pump, new upper and lower hose. We'll pop the thermostat housing off, we'll put a new thermostat in it, all new coolant. Radiator, I don't know yet. Once we get it out of the car, we can probably put a hose to it and see if we can clean it up somewhat. I mean, it appears pretty scaly. So if we can't get a lot of that out, unfortunately we might have to go to a aftermarket radiator, and there lies the decision. Another thing to consider when you're working on these, this car was untouched for its entire life. No one had ever taken it apart. When you're taking these apart, like we had to pop the upper intake off to get to the valve covers, you've got to be super careful unplugging all your electronics, all this plastic, all the connections, everything from years being under the hood and just age in general is it starts to get brittle. So you got to be very gentle popping off your idle air control and your throttle position sensor, all this stuff. You got to be gentle undoing the plastic, especially working around, if your car like this one still has the original smog pump on it, down here, but all the assorted lines and plastic lines, especially you have to be, right here and back here. You've got to be very careful working around these, because you can't get them, number one. Number two, once you break them, they're broke, and it's not, you want to maintain all these pieces of originality, so to speak. You want to keep the car as original as you can, within the scope of making it run and be as reliable as it was when it left the factory. So, like, for example, we were talking about the cooling system. I mean, maybe it lasts another 5 years. Maybe the next time we start the car, the water pump shits the bed. So that's the dilemma you're faced with on old cars like this. You want to keep them as original as possible, but at the same time you also want to bring them back to life and allow them to run as they were intended. If you got to baby the thing and be scared to take it down the street to the store, then it's not really fulfilling its purpose now, is it? We're gonna approach this a little bit differently. We were hoping we'd be wrapped here on the under the hood, so to speak, with the exception of changing the oil and whatnot, and get under the car and do the trans flush and filter and fuel filter and all that good stuff. But it appears we're going to have to stay up above a little bit longer and address this cooling system. So next time we check back in, we'll let you know whether or not we had to do the water pump or not. We'll probably know a little more once we pop the radiator out and check the hoses. Fingers still crossed it's just a lower rad hose, but it doesn't look like it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.